everyone. For those that do know you and don't know you, this is such a privilege. Dr. Albert Wong is a professor of somatic psychology at the California Institute of Integral Studies and the former director of somatic psychology at JFK University. He maintains a private counsel and consulting practice centered around somatic psychotherapy, and he's the founder of the online somatic education platform, which I absolutely love, Somatopia. So thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Albert Wong, and I'm going to pass it along to you.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and just turn down the music here. That was kind of like the whole elevator music in the background, but appreciate you indulging me. And it's great to see faces smiling and getting my little jokes. I think that's one of the lessons from Stephen Porges, that so much of our connection comes through seeing. And, you know, I know that many of you, I'm probably spotlit, so you're seeing me, but I'll just let you know, I'll probably go back and forth between my whiteboard and looking at you, just because I love seeing you. There's something about my heart that just springs open when I see faces and sense open hearts. So thank you for that. Yeah. You know, it's fascinating. Yeah, I see smiles and joy, even just, yeah, you can even feel. In some ways, I feel like I'm just this reflective chamber of kind of kindness coming in, and my job is just to cycle it back out. You know, it's interesting just because there's, you know, lots of people sharing and like all sorts of beautiful things about me. And you know, I'll just share it. Like it's sometimes hard to hold, and I'm learning to open more and more to it. And the biggest thing that comes out of that is, at least just a spillover response of like just the beauty just starts to spill over into everyone that I see. Because I guess I don't know. I don't have it fully formulated, but there's something about that cycle that happens. Like you see me, I feel my heart, and then everybody becomes so beautiful. So I feel grateful, and yeah, I'm all over. Right? Okay, so well, you know, we have kind of topics and stuff, and there's a program and all that, but I want to get a sense of y'all, and I guess, you know, it's always great, you know, sensing the world around the globe light up with all the locations, which is always beautiful. You know, just kind of, I think we live in a fragmented world, right? And when I see places like Kuwait, Australia, like, you know, Mill Valley, which is right next door, I'm in San Rafael, you know, it's just, okay, we're connected, we're a little connected. So if you want, you're welcome and invited to chime in from where you're at. Always kind of enjoy just feeling, and maybe this could be even not just a typing exercise, but a sensing exercise of feeling our interconnectedness, right? So, oh, and yeah, so we got the chat on. It's, oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I'm one of these folks who likes the chat. I don't know why. I know sometimes they kind of like want to control. Well, I don't know if control is the right word, but I think it can get overwhelming. Yeah, Ontario, Canada. Thank you. Thanks. Washington, Nottingham, England. Yeah, New York, Boulder. Wow. You know, and there's probably more places that I can read off, you know, but it's a little bit like, I don't know, like world surfing. Not that I've ever been a rock star or anything like that, but sometimes it's just like feeling the rhythm of all of it, right? Just lighting up around the world. Okay. Well, yeah. So the theme is healing trauma, from fragmentation to embodiment. Okay. Um, and, finding out where we are, kind of location wise, is a bit of, okay, orienting. This is us. You're here. I'm there. Okay, I'm getting a sense of us. I'd also like to just to get a sense of us, maybe like where we are in our lives or careers. Like, I guess, who here is, say, a trauma or kind of a professional in the field, like a clinician or somebody who kind of has that back. Okay, so some people, okay, but okay, I see some hands up. All right, okay. Who here is kind of here more just for their own personal growth or healing? Okay, so I see kind of some hands and nods there. Okay, kind of like okay, who here is here for support or kind of a loved one? Is that anybody? Yeah, maybe less resonance with that, I imagine. Okay, some hearts. Okay, okay, okay. That gives me a sense. Who here feels like they know a fair amount about, yeah, somatics or mind-body therapy or trauma healing already? Okay, so there's a okay, so that's kind of okay. Who here feels like relatively new to some of this? Yeah. Like, okay, yeah, okay. So there's something, so it's a mixed group. All right, okay. So there's so what I'm going to invite is for us to be patient with those of us who have less understanding and to help us all along, right? As we kind of move towards a collective deepening, right? And hopefully there's something for all of us. There's one of these sayings, I think it's an African proverb. If you want to move fast, go alone. If you want to go far, travel together, right? And at least my wish is that we travel far together, kind of with the notion of community, right? We're trying to build knowledge and wisdom, and it'll be easier along the way if we go together. All right. So yeah, it's an inspiring proverb. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So, and this is just kind of for me. How many of you have seen me before? I don't know. This is just okay. Some of you. Oh my God. Oh, now I feel super self-conscious because I worry that I'm going to be repetitive. So hopefully this isn't. Okay, it's not. Okay. Well, all right. Well, I appreciate your indulgence and yeah, yeah. Repetition is learning. Okay. Well, I thank you for your patience and thanks for revisiting. Okay. All right. So we're going to go to these. I like, well, those of you who've seen me before know that I like to use the whiteboard. I used to do PowerPoints. But there's something about the whiteboard which kind of helps, I don't know, just helps me share how I'm feeling right now, right? So there's like a little bit of trembling in me, like a little bit of bewilderment, like people like me or come back to see me, which always bewilders me. But there's also, okay, in the midst of trembling, there's the heart. So, okay. So this is a class on healing trauma, healing trauma from fragmentation to embodiment. Okay. So the idea is we're going to try and move from fragment. You get my idea, fragmentation, okay, to embodiment. Okay. Uh, uh, it's so funny. I feel like I've typed so much, I've forgotten how to spell. It's one of these ways in which my body is not like connected anymore. Like it's a very odd thing, but okay. But that's the objective. Okay. See a little bit about me. Gosh, I lived for a lot of my life as a super smart kid. I was like a whiz kid. I was like, I don't know, like math and physics. I'll draw like a square root of 2 just to represent that. But I was super smart and I guess a little bit boxy, and not particularly erotic or spiritual. In fact, there was really a disconnect between myself and my being. Right, I was kind of a separate kind of mind and body. Right? Those were very different, and I hit a point where that didn't work anymore, and I really wanted to find out how to have these two parts start to connect again. I was living in my own sense of fragmentation, this own split between me and myself, between maybe my heart and my mind, right? And I didn't know how to find my way back. I ended up going to grad school, trying to figure out with my mind, trying to think my way back into wholeness, but that didn't work so much. And landed in California, on the coast of California, in a place called Big Sur and the Esalen Institute. And when I was there, it's one of these places that mends people. And I started to learn to listen to my body, to my heart that had been forgotten, right? And it's forgave me for ignoring it for many years. And I started to listen to it again and came back into wholeness. So I feel grateful for that time. And since that moment, I always thought that I would come back and teach. And excuse me, well, and after many years, I've landed, and I've had the great privilege and honor of teaching at JFK and CIIS, and yeah, that's how I come here and now with you. So we're going to talk about healing trauma. And what I'd like to do is maybe poll our group and recognizing that there's lots of different sources of wisdom here. Maybe we could, where's my, okay, there we go. Okay. Just ask the question, what is trauma? Okay, what is trauma? And you can feel free to type into the chat if you like what you think trauma might be. Okay, what is trauma to you? And there might be different answers, right? Hi, Mukesh. Good to have you here. Trauma is 1.14159, I think. What is trauma to you? Yeah. Suffering. Yes. Suffering. Yeah. Disconnect. Broken open. Yeah, that's what a phrase. Loneliness. Yeah. Loneliness is totally trauma. Startling disruption. Right. Startling disruption. Yeah, something unbearable, right? That's kind of like suffering, broken open, pain, fracture, right? Absolutely. Yeah, fractured sense of self, absolutely. Disconnection, totally. Unsafety. Yeah, pain and suffering that's not digested, right? Exactly. Okay. A bad surprise, right? That's the startled part. Exactly. Overwhelm. Absolutely. Overwhelm. I'm going to put that in bold here, right? So it's overwhelm. Okay. So yeah, so all of that, like unconscious pain, right? Confusion, dysregulation, fear, right? And yeah, and sometimes violated boundaries, right? Totally, right? It can be generational. Yeah. So there's many different kinds of trauma. Suicidal killing, yeah, that can be a consequence, right? Like the suffering can be so great that there's no other, it can lead to things like kind of um, eventually, potentially, suicidal thoughts, etc. Okay, absolutely. So all of that totally is trauma. One shorthand for all of this can be just the notion of too much, right? Too fast, too soon, right? If something happens and it's coming at us that is too much, too fast, or too soon, it will cause unsafety. We'll get startled, right? It'll be disruptive. There'll be deep suffering. It will break us open, fracture ourselves, right? Yeah, right. And um, having no choice can be a big part of that, right? No agency. It can also be too little, too late, right? Like I needed help, I needed support, but nobody was there. I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting. There's nobody there, right? And then that's trauma, right? Space, yeah. That's another one. Sometimes too long. Learn something every time. If it was too fast, too soon, or I had to bear it for too long. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So one way of drawing this, and please forgive me as we review this for some of you who know this, but let's just kind of do a little of this erasing. Okay. There's this classic drawing. Okay, back to the pen. Okay, right. It looks like this. And let me just pause for a moment. And how many of you have seen a drawing that looks like that before in the context of trauma healing? Okay, I know. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. And maybe you can help teach us, right? Or help guide us along. Okay, so all right. So for those of you who haven't seen this before, this is maybe one of the most significant conceptualizations of trauma that's out there. This particular model comes from Dan Siegel. And basically, this here represents nervous system activation. Okay, nervous system activation. Right. So basically, this down here is calm. This down here is kind of activated. Right. And so it might be that I'm out on my morning stroll. It's really calm. I'm not doing anything in particular. Then I remember I need to get to the dentist's office, right? I haven't been to the dentist in a long time. I actually just went this week, but okay, dentist's office. And then I feel a little anxious, okay? And then I realize I'm late. Oh no, okay, I kind of, I race to get there. I get a little activated. I'm a little anxious because it's the dentist. I'm activated because it's late. Okay, I kind of get in my car. There's traffic. Okay, I'm a little more anxious, but eventually I make it there. Everything goes okay, and then I calm down again, right? So that was like a little stressful, kind of, there's a little sympathetic activation, right? That's what they say, sympathetic activation, one branch of the nervous system, but it all went okay. So I got calmed again. So that's parasympathetic, okay? Okay, so no trauma happened. It was just like, okay, a little stressful. And they call this going up and down the arousal cycle. I got a little bit nervous system activated, aroused, but it was bearable, manageable. I got there on time. No big shakes. Okay, then came back down. Now, alternate scenario. Okay, I need to go to the dentist's office. Okay, I'm calm enough, but then I get a little bit more anxious. I try to get there on time, and then all of a sudden, on my way there, kind of there's traffic. I decide I have to make it there, and kind of I take some risky maneuvers, and all of a sudden, I see kind of coming towards me a big truck that's in the wrong lane, and I try and swerve, and then all of a sudden, like something happens, and boom, right? It creates this level of activation that's almost too much, too fast, too soon, right? I wasn't ready for that. Okay, it was overwhelming, and I went past what they call the tipping point. Okay, past the tipping point. I'm in overwhelm, and maybe there's a moment where it's like, oh my gosh, I see the truck, and then it's like then my nervous system gets flushed with adrenaline, cortisol, all these stress hormones, and things start fading away. Right, kind of my body might go numb, or I might get fixated on a certain image, or I might start to lose imagery. But I gave this example of maybe a car accident, but this could be anything, right? Like that could be nervous system overwhelming, and that pushes me from the domain of what this is called within your window of tolerance. Okay, of tolerance. So this range here, right? That is your window of tolerance. Yeah, thanks, Brenda. That's your window of tolerance. Out of your window of tolerance, right? So this is the range. This is the domain of overwhelm, right? This is where all of this stuff happens, right? Trauma happens here. Okay. Okay. So that's kind of the basics of how kind of trauma starts. That's kind of trauma. I don't know if it's 101, but like the foundational. Now, I have borrowed via courtesy of Chris Price, one of my teachers at Esalen. The framework that I like to use is something called the surfboard, the keyboard, and the boardroom. Okay. And this first step here, when we go past our window of tolerance, right? Like down here, we're riding the wave. I'm on the wave. I'm on the wave. I'm doing it just fine. I can experience what I experience. There's nothing bad that happens. Here, the wave is too big, right? The wave is too big. It's too overwhelming. I get thrown off the surfboard. I cannot hold all the experience. So I almost get thrown off the surfboard. Okay. There's more experience. There's more activation than my system can take. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So that's one of the things that happens right during trauma. Now, yeah. I love the Little Prince. I'll have to go back and take a look at that hat. Anyways. So yeah, the elephant eaten by a snake. That's what it was. Okay. Well, I think that there's maybe a metaphor. Well, I want to kind of include all of this in that. I think one of the things that's true about the Little Prince, and maybe that's a metaphor, is that there's things that we can think of us as little innocent kids, like a little prince, who goes through life, right? And it can manage things okay, right? And hopefully, if there's something that's a little overwhelming for the little kid or little prince, there's something that can regulate them. Hopefully, maybe a parent, right? Kind of. I'm going to draw this as the letter R. the idea is the R stands for resource or regulator. And the idea is that the message of the Little Prince for me is this message about the loss of the childhood wonderment that we have, right? As kids, we grow up and we get thrown off of our surfboard. And if we don't have a safe environment, like a regulator, we stay stuck up here, right? And one of the hopes is that we find people who can regulate us, raise our window of tolerance, at least temporarily, so that we can manage what we could otherwise not manage, right? You have a little kid kind of going along and, something happens, they get scared, right? And it's like, I'm here and I don't know what to do. Something just scared me. Somebody, and they start to cry for help, right? If they're untended to, right? Sometimes, for too long or there's too little too late, right? They can start to shut down, right? You have learned helplessness, as children, right? So part of the idea here is, this territory up here is so difficult for us, right? This territory up here is so difficult for us. And we need people to be with us, to carry with us, right? To hold with us, right? We need people to help us hold more than we ourselves can hold. Like if a kid's window of tolerance is this big, right? Right? Just this big, like a kid plus maybe a good parent, right? Can make their window of tolerance this big, right? Or maybe bigger, or maybe bigger. It's like, oh, that hurts. Okay, but I'm here. I'm with you. Together we can take this on, right? Together we can hold this. All right. So anyways, just trying to integrate all the parts here. Yeah. So, so let's, apologies for the hopefully not too diversion of a diversion, but I think it kind of relates, okay? Because if we look at this little thing here, kind of, if we blow up this little dot, because I drew it like a dot, it's actually not a dot, right? I think, if you explode that little dot and kind of zoom in on that, like at least for a kid, right, it would be maybe, and I'll just M for mother, C for child, right? Kind of M for mother, C for child. And it's not like the child's going through by themselves, and mother kind of in the primary caregiver sense, right? Kind of, but that sometimes it's an individual going up and down the curve, right? But during our own developmental process, right, it's maybe a mother and a child going up and down the developmental curve, managing the wave together, co-regulating together to survive through it, right? Or not, right? Maybe there's something that's too stressful for the mother-child group, right? It's like the mother has their own challenges, right? Their own discomforts or inabilities. The child isn't tended to, and there's a separation, right? Yeah, and that's what happens when there's no one for regulation, and that's when there is that separation and then that trauma. Okay, so so let's move forward just a little. So I guess there's a lot of different aspects to this theory, but just blowing this kind of little dot up again, right? There's the developmental perspective of mother and child as a unit that can hold together and go up and down arousal waves or not, right? That can be on the surfboard together. It's like, oh, okay, this is a little challenging, but we can get through this. Okay, so you wanted to, play with your friend. Okay, but you can't. Okay, but that's okay. And we can get through this. It's arousal. There's arousal, but we can get through it. It's okay, right? Or you wanted to play for your friend. I don't know what to do. You figure it out, kid, right? Okay. The wave was too much. The mother is too overwhelmed, or the child is too activated. And so something happens and things break apart. Fracture happens. The mother separates from the child. Okay. Another way of conceptualizing this, just to offer, we separate from ourselves. So let's just take a look at this, and maybe we'll look at another way of zooming in on this, just as an individual, more for maybe an adult perspective. Because the truth is, for adults, right, who have already passed the developmental stage, mother and child, there's zooming in on that little dot actually is, it looks like that. Okay, and let me explain what this is. So this SciBAM conceptualization comes from Peter Levine and somatic experiencing. So Peter Levine, I think he's also presenting here, and it's his SciBAM model of the constituents of experience. Okay. So one way you could conceptualize this, particularly for adults, is that if you zoom in on this, it actually is composed of many different aspects. And in his model, it's sensation, image, right, affect, which basically means feeling, behavior, and meaning. Okay, and let me tell you what I mean by that. Okay, so suppose I'm going to the dentist and I'm getting in my car and I'm traveling there and all is well and good. Okay, along the way, I'm going to have certain sensations in my body. I'm going to have certain affect and feeling. I'm going to be able to ascribe certain meaning to the circumstances moment to moment as they arise. I'm going to be engaged in certain behavior, and I'm going to have certain images, things that I see on my way there, right? So I'm going to be, walking to my car. That's a behavior that I'm doing. I can sense my body as I'm doing that. I can feel a little bit anxious and, but I can feel that and I can tell myself, oh, I'm going to the dentist. Okay, I'm having a meaning associated with that. And I see things along the way. I get there. Okay, this friendly dentist. Oh, I actually named my hygienist the happy hygienist because she was very bubbly. Kind of anyways, that was kind of an aside. But yeah, and I was able to make jokes and feel connected, and so at no point did I kind of black out or lose consciousness, right? So everything, there was kind of internal coherence, right? Internal coherence of experience. All of these pieces together, sensation, affect, image, behavior, meaning, they kind of glom together to form a coherent whole, something you might call a percept, right? Or an overall just experience. Like that's the experience. I went there, kind of I saw things and kind of I experienced things as a whole, right? Okay. So yeah, and there's ways in which when I was activated, it was still bearable. Okay. However, if I am going through, I guess I would say, I'm going to erase some stuff here. So I traveled through, whoa, I just erased the whole thing. Let's see. Okay. So I traveled through this this version of the dentist trip like that, okay? And all my experience hung together as one whole thing. Now, however, when I went up here, right? And remember this route is, okay, I'm late, I'm trying to get there, all of a sudden I change lanes, there's a truck headed my way, and then I see it almost as it's happening in slow motion. I can't get out of the way. And then I get thrown off my surfboard. Okay. And this starts to happen. Okay. So it doesn't hang together, right? It doesn't hang together. There's a part that separates from a part. It's fractionation, right? And we'll go back down here to talk about how some of that might happen. It's like sensation. It might be my body goes numb all of a sudden. I can't feel my body anymore. Or I want to shout and scream, but I can't hear my voice. Like my voice doesn't let myself scream. The behavior is frozen. I can't do it. I might black out the image that I have that was continuous before. Like I stopped seeing it. I start forgetting where I am, the meaning. It's like, okay, whoa, what am I doing? Where am I going? I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on anymore. It's like, it's overwhelming. So these different parts, which are supposed to be internally coherent, right? It gets broken open, right? It gets fractured, right? So that the individual coherent experience breaks open, right? I'm no longer held together, right? And all I have are these broken kind of conceptualizations, right? Right. So, yeah. Um, yeah, I just want to kind of acknowledge some care, right? Yeah, that we get regulated um, um, by sometimes mothers, if we had, or parent, primary caregivers. We can kind of get regulated by different parts, and not all of us have that, right? Not all of us have that. Okay. So let's just let's see. It's an interesting challenge here. I'm just noticing and sitting with kind of levels of my care towards community and wanting to hold the group and trying to sort out what's wanted and needed for a moment. Because I see like there's questions about what do you do if you don't have, and this was Lisa's question, right? What do you do if you have no one for co-regulation? I want to acknowledge that question because that's a real question. It's a live question, right? So, so I don't know if you're out there. Well, I know you're out there, right? Oh, that's you, Lisa. Oh, that's that Lisa. Okay, yeah. So there you are, and here I am, right? And you're nodding your head, and you're seeing me, right? And we're together, right? And so wherever you are, right, you're not alone, okay? And just feel me with you, right? Okay. And so just sense that, okay? And if you can feel kind of you're not aloneness, right? That can be a first step, right? You're not alone. And sometimes that can be a co-regulation, right? There's, there's community. There were people I saw in the chat, right? Seeker's Path Yoga reached out to you and said, animals help me co-regulate, right? Kendra reached out saying, I found co-regulation with my animal. David reached out. So even just imagining these different people reaching out, right? And near you. And what's true? I mean, I think there's different, each person has their own something that supports them. I remember when I went through a phase, kind of when I didn't feel like I had anybody particularly, I would go home and maybe this is why I like music. I would just put on WEZK lie in bed and just listen to kind of this, very sappy music, and it would help me feel a little bit more okay, right? So, yeah. All right. So at least these are some different ideas. Okay. So yeah, nature and hiking, all of these things. So I'll just say, because there's what I'll be able to hold, and I'll just say that for what I can't hold from the questions in the chat, I'll just say I feel sadness and grief, and my care is with you. And please, type into the Embodied Lab community, and we'll try and, for the questions that I can't reach right now, we'll try and catch those on the other side. Okay, but we're going to go ahead and yeah, appreciate all of us for helping all of us, right? Because it is a community. Okay, just developing kind of this idea here, back to the kind of, yeah, regularly scheduled program a little bit. So yeah, so there's these different experiences that are supposed to hold together, right? That don't hold together and they separate out. And we get thrown off our surfboard, right? And the keyboard notion is that certain notes on our keyboard, kind of if you imagine a piano keyboard, get stuck, right? Or stop being able to be being played, right? Yeah. So for example, in the moment at the car accident with the truck, right? My body went numb, right? Say, for example, and that key on the keyboard might get stuck in the off position. Like I might walk around with my body feeling numb, right? So that key, that little part, you can almost draw it as like this little piece that fell off. That key on the keyboard got stuck off. I can't feel my body anymore, right? Or a certain affect might get stuck. Like I might feel numb, or I might feel like, I don't know why, out of the blue, I just start crying for no reason, right? That key on the keyboard, that affect key, might get stuck in its own way, right? That kind of sadness or fear or terror might get stuck, right? And just start to play that note all the time, all the time, all the time. And I have no idea why, because I don't have any meaning that's associated with it. I don't get why that's happening. All it doesn't connect to anything. So that key on the keyboard might get stuck. Or I might find like I can't drive anymore. I just do not want to get into cars anymore. A certain behavior, I no longer am able to feel my capacity to kind of get in the car, right? So yeah, it is kind of like being developmentally arrested. And at least one of the theories about why crying for no reason might happen is because your nervous system got overwhelmed, right? There was too much for your nervous system to hold, right? You got thrown off your surfboard and your internal coherence started to fracture apart, right? Your internal coherence started to fracture apart. It stopped being able to be put together into a coherent experience. And so potentially crying could just happen without the connection to the underlying images that should be associated with it, or meaning, like images, right? And unexpected impatient or angry outbursts also, those could be kind of similar. Or images, like every time I see cars, okay, I get tight. Or like I keep seeing like the truck over and over again, like it's fixed, it's seared in my memory. That key on my keyboard has gotten stuck, okay? So, and that's a challenge, that's a problem, right? Because these fractured elements of experience, like not whole experience, not a whole CYBAM experience, right? We want a whole CYBAM experience, but all we have are these broken parts, right, with trauma. That's trauma, okay? Only having access to the broken parts. Now, I think there's a, yeah, and this is like a specific trauma that happens, and kind of, I think with complex trauma, things kind of happen more over time, and that's also absolutely another kind of trauma. Now, I want to show a little video which demonstrates what is actually happening, because there's some questions about why does this happen, and there's actually a neurophysiological explanation for it. Our brain is supposed to take experience as it happens and encode it into memory, right? It's like, okay, what's happening now? Okay, let me file that away as a memory, all right? Like you can think of the hippocampus as this thing that timestamps experience and says, okay, this occurred then, and files it away into memory, right? It's like, it's what tells me, okay, I went to the dentist 2 days ago. Okay, it's time-stamped in that way. During trauma, the hippocampus goes offline, right? The experience that is supposed to happen doesn't get time-stamped, right? It doesn't get consolidated, time-stamped and said, oh, okay, 2 days ago, boom, that happened then, right? In trauma, it's like, okay, truck's happening, my system is overwhelmed, I'm flooded with adrenaline, cortisol, my amygdala is like boom, 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 boom. My brain is supposed to bring experience together, timestamp it, and put it away into the past, but it wasn't able to do that. It wasn't able to timestamp it. It didn't consolidate the memory and put it away in the past. So it has this feeling of, oh, it hasn't yet finished happening. It could still be happening now. Like the past is still happening in the present. The memory isn't like a memory. It's like it's alive. Like the truck is happening now, right? Okay. So, and until I can feel safe enough to remember, right, the parts, and bring them back, consolidate them into the memory that I'm trying not to remember because too much. And until I can do that and actually get it and file it away, it'll still persist. Okay. So this video is courtesy of London trauma therapists, right? Okay. And hopefully it'll give some of the neurological background. And for those folks who, yeah, there's so many, kind of, if you find yourself in repetitive cycles, sometimes it means that there's some aspect of the arousal cycle that hasn't completed. We'll get to that in just a minute. But for now, let's just, let's see, let me share the sound on this, but this is a video clip about what happens neurologically.
This is your brain, and there's a part of your brain called the hippocampus, which is a little bit like a filing cabinet. Within that filing cabinet, you store what we often refer to as normal memories. Now, normal memories have a number of different characteristics. These memories are generally organised, categorised, and sequential. They are verbally accessible, and you have control over the retrieval of these memories. For example, if you wanted to retrieve a memory of what you did on New Year's Eve, then you could probably provide a fairly coherent account from A to B. These memories are time-tagged, which means you know when they happened. You know that your memory of New Year's Eve was just after Christmas and sometime before you went back to work in January. And these normal memories can be updated by new information. This means that if you had a memory of arranging to meet a friend on New Year's Eve who didn't turn up, your memory might have been that your friend let you down. If you later found out that your friend had been in an accident, you would update the memory to include this new information. The hippocampus, your normal memory store, is connected to a number of higher function brain regions involved in regulating emotions, language, and abstract thought. And your hippocampus helps you to process, interpret, and contextualize information. Now, imagine that you are heading out today. You might be thinking about what you've been doing so far today. You might be wondering what you'll have for dinner, what time your partner will be home, whether or not you locked the back door, worrying about somebody, remembering something that you've forgotten to do. You might be looking at your mobile phone. At any one time, we process a lot of complicated information and emotional responses. Imagine all of this is going through your mind just as you're about to cross over the road and suddenly you see a truck hurtling down the road towards you. What happens? Well, there's another part of your brain called the amygdala, which is like the brain's alarm system. You are faced with danger, be it a large truck coming towards you, someone physically assaulting you, or you being faced with a situation that you judge to be life-threatening in some way, and the alarm goes off. Essentially, danger, do something, or get hurt. Your amygdala, your brain's alarm system, sends a signal to the rest of your brain and your body. Your heart starts racing so that oxygen is pumped around your body to your muscles so that you are ready for action. A number of hormones and neurotransmitters are released, such as cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenaline. This is your body's fight, flight, freeze response. Your body has prepared you to very quickly gauge how to respond to maximize your chance of survival, to step back or quickly run across the road before being hit by the truck. It's a fast and efficient system, and in order for your brain and body to respond quickly and efficiently, your hippocampus goes offline. This means that in times of extreme trauma, information is not processed in the same way, and your brain stores a different type of memory, a trauma memory. Trauma memories have different characteristics to normal memories. I like to think of them as these red spiky fragments. They are generally not well organized and sequential. They are fragmented. You have little control over the retrieval of these memories, which means they tend to come back involuntarily without warning. They are situationally accessible, which means they are usually triggered by reminders in the environment. They are not time-tagged, which means it's hard to place when they happened. It feels like these memories are frozen in time, and when they come back, it's like they're occurring again now in the present. And when they come back, they tend to be associated with all of the same emotions and unpleasant physiological sensations that someone experienced at the time of the trauma. There has been a lot of research into the neuropsychological basis of PTSD, and what the experts think is happening is in the aftermath of a traumatic experience, your brain is attempting to process these memories and put them back into the filing system. Following a traumatic experience, almost everyone will experience these intrusive, spiky fragments of memory. In some cases, because these memories are so intrusive, overwhelming, and distressing, people do whatever they can to stop them from coming back. They avoid anything and anyone that might trigger the memories. They try to develop strategies to block and suppress the memories, whether it's through drugs and alcohol, distraction, or leaving no space to think and feel. However, what we know about blocking and suppression is that the more you try not to think about something, the more it tends to keep coming back. A stupid example is to try as hard as you can not to think about a pink elephant on a bicycle. Another example is thinking about a small child who comes downstairs and says to you, "I'm scared because there's a scary monster under the bed." And instead of going upstairs with the child to look for the monster, you say, "Don't be stupid, sit down and eat your dinner." The child's fear of the monster isn't going to disappear. It might even get worse. Your trauma is the monster under the bed, and you might find that the more you try to ignore it and push it away, the more it keeps coming back.
Okay. Yeah. So that's just a little bit of the, and thank you so much, Pauline, for for dropping that into the link into the chat. Appreciate that. Thanks for your support and help. Yeah. So yeah, I think this gives a little bit of the neurophysiological understanding of what's going on, right? That our memory isn't filed away, right? A trauma memory just is out there and floating. Okay? So yeah. So there's let me save this image and then kind of get a new sheet here for a sec. Okay, so there's different instances here. So we're just kind of like going back to this, and there's some questions about like, what about complex trauma, right? If it's not just a single event, because sometimes it's like a singular event that occurs that kind of sends you all the way up here. Sometimes it's more gradual and chronic, right? And that's true too. You know, I think sometimes you can draw that in many different ways. Sometimes I think of that as like just having less resourcing in the system, right? There's less capacity in the system that gradually just slowly erodes a person down, but that also creates fracture, right? Eventually, sometimes it is 1,000 paper cuts. Absolutely, that can do that. There's actually an article by one of my colleagues, Ray Johnson, called 1,000 Paper Cuts, a very brilliant piece about some of the background soup of trauma that can occur from marginalized groups. So yeah, 1,000 Paper Cuts is actually the title of an article. So let's see. So here we are. We've got the surfboard, right? So there you are, either on your surfboard, right, on that wave, or thrown off your surfboard, right, kind of off your surfboard into this memory fragment that's not filed away, you know, and then parts of your keyboard get stuck, right? Some of your sensation or image or behavior or affect or meaning kind of starts to take on this repetitive quality or frozen quality, one or the two, right? These start to separate out from each other, right? Okay. And yeah, and that's Ray Johnson, who is a great colleague, who wrote 1,000 Paper Cuts. Yeah, sure, no worries. Yeah. So surfboard, keyboard, and the boardroom. Okay. So you've got all of these parts here, all of these parts. And some of them are fragmented out. And what do we do? How do we get these to come back together, right? Because the idea here is at first, right? At first, they're just hanging out here like the Little Prince hat, right? In this kind of fragmented place, right? Kind of alone, and they are like the fox and the Little Prince, untamed, right? These are just like parts that feel unloved, unseen, unwanted. Sometimes the phrase is exiled, right? They don't know where they belong. They're wandering around like the globe or your inner psychic globe saying, where am I supposed to be? I'm trying to find my home. I'm trying to find my other parts that I'm supposed to fit with, right? It's actually kind of not fun just hanging out here, right? Just as this floating fragment in the world. Get me back to where I belong, right? And that's where the metaphor of the boardroom comes in, right? If you start to listen to each of these parts as if they had their own voice and humanity, right? As if they had their own consciousness and wisdom, as if you were to listen and hold each of these parts, the sensation that feels so strange, and maybe you want to not feel, but you say, hey, stranger, let me please know you. Sensation. What are you, what's going on? What do you want to tell, or what do you want to say, or what do you want to move, right? And if, and that's that process of, if you can be a resource, right, for that fractured part and say, I am with you, you know, I am with you, Lisa, or whoever, right? Or I'm with you, sensation that kind of doesn't know what to do. Or I'm with you, this repeating image of just brakes, the sound of brakes and my steering wheel, okay? You know, if I just let myself be with that fragment, right? Just for instance, okay, I don't know why, but okay, let's just start with, for example, this weird sensation that happens in my body of all of a sudden, all of the life kind of draining out, right? It just feels numb, 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 numb. And I'm just going to sit next to that feeling for a while and listen to it. It feels numb, it feels numb, it feels numb. And then I don't know why, but all of a sudden, right, I notice my left foot start to tremble. So there's a movement, maybe a behavior that starts to happen, a behavior that starts to happen. Okay, I sense my left foot start to tremble and move. And then all of a sudden I start to notice I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling really scared. So my affect starts coming back. I feel numb, then I feel my behavior coming back online, then I feel fear, and all of a sudden I see like the truck kind of, and there it is. And there it is. And I feel the fear, and I feel my trembling, and I'm scared, and I know what it means. I know where I am again. I'm at that moment, right before the accident. It's coming back. It's coming back. It's coming back. And now I know where it is, and I can put it together. That's what happened. That's what happened. And maybe there's like, now I can feel the feelings that were too overwhelming. Like before, it broke me open. It broke me open. I could not hold it. But now, with enough support, with enough somebody with me caring, these parts find each other again, right? And then come back into connection again, like the kind of fragmentation that occurred kind of becomes a whole again. It returns into coherence, returns into wholeness, and then it can like, oh, okay, I was scared, but I'm safe now. I'm safe now. I was scared. It was a challenging, horrific thing, but I'm safe enough to bear through it. I'm on the other side, right? So you start to listen to each of these parts as if it had its own valid voice, right? So, yeah. And as you listen with enough support and resourcing, right? With enough accompaniment, with enough guidance, with enough love, care, and safety, right? Those parts will generally start to find each other and come back into wholeness, coming back down, all right? So, yeah, and this parts model here, you can think of parts in many different ways, right? In somatic experiencing, or Pat Ogden's work even, sometimes it's like parts are the constituents of experience, like the part that is the sensation that's broken off of the part that is affect, that's broken off from the image, right? That's separated out, that's broken off from the behavior, that's broken apart from the meaning. That's one way in which the parts can get broken apart. But there's other ways of conceptualizing the fracture, right? And I saw this alluded to a little bit in the chat, right? Sometimes things fragment out, and it's a little bit different from that. And let me draw what I mean. Sometimes it's a sensation fragment. That's a very classic fragment, like my body goes numb is a very classic fracture that goes off, or an image I get stuck on is a very classic fracture. Especially in more complex trauma, the fracture lines are a little bit more complex, right? So it might be, the fracture lines might be more like something called an inner child, got fractured out off and apart, which might be a certain kind of sensation, like maybe the sensation is like I feel really small in my body, right? And maybe there's certain behaviors that go with that, right? So these actually go together, almost like these are kind of fractured, like this is my inner child feeling when I'm in that place. This is the behavior that I use. These are sensations, right? And I might have a different part, right? I think Richard Schwartz presented, right? So a lot of this is from IFS, Internal Family Systems. So you might have an inner child part. You might have a part that's like a really strong protector part, right? A manager that gets things done, accomplished. And that might have a different sensation, right? And maybe different affect, right? It feels, and it might have different thoughts and meanings, right? Right. So the fracture lines can occur in different ways, right? But you're always trying to get them to connect with each other again, right? Whatever the fracture line is, just to bring them back into whole, right? Yeah, it can be a false self, right? That's another version, right? False self, right? You know, and those are kind of this is more like developmental trauma, right? These things are more likely in those cases. All right. So, okay. So those are. So what do you do? So what's the general model for how to heal? Right. That's the kind of the diagnosis. Yeah. There's a lot of different authors and views. I mean, many folks are kind of same words, different language, even like trauma-focused CBT, anyways, uses like cognition, behavior, and affect. That's their version of CYBAM. Dan Siegel has SIFT, sensation, image, feeling, and thought, right? There's the CYBAM model, there's ISOMA. Anyways, different people. I've got my own, whatever, like whole octave version. There's a million of these models, but they point towards a similar pattern. There's the, kind of the ego state. The IFS falls into a larger category of ego state therapy, right? And there's large traditions of that, like Gestalt chair work, psychosynthesis. I mean, there's inner child work, transactional analysis. So much weaves together, right? I'm trying to unfragment the field on some level, right? Like trying to bring us all in. Like you don't have to fight, right? We're all kind of just walking our way back home, right? Ram Dass, all just walking our way back home. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for hearing that. I see your remembrance of Ram Dass, or ways that touched you, maybe. Yeah. So, yeah. So, yeah, no need to fight. We're all figuring it out together. So what do you do? Okay. Well, basically, the rules are, like there's all the complex theory. I mean, I guess basically find the parts, love the parts, right? help them find their way home. Yeah. Okay. So that's basically the practice and the process, right? Yeah. Witness the parts, love the parts, witness the parts, help them find their way home. Okay. So kind of at the essence, that's it. Okay. So find the parts, love the parts, help them find their way home. The finding the parts is, okay, we're assuming that maybe some folks, if they've experienced trauma, have gotten thrown off their surfboard. You look at their keyboard. What keys do they play, right? Or what parts are accessible to them? So you find the parts by, okay, maybe there's sensation that they don't have access to, or maybe there's an inner child kind of vulnerability that they don't have access to. You know, maybe that key on their keyboard kind of is stuck, right, in the off position. They're like adults and they're not allowed to be kids, right? And then, so you find the parts, love the parts, give them a voice at the board table of the boardroom, right? So the metaphor of the boardroom is that all these voices matter, all parts matter. Every voice deserves to get heard. Like in the boardroom, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you, right? It's like you are welcome here, and I want to hear your voice. Love them, and then listen to them, right? Witness them, help them find their way home. Be a good parent for your parts, absolutely. Okay. So, what I thought we might do, well, let me just check in. How are people doing with all this? How are people doing with all this? Yeah, appreciative. You know, I sense gratitude, thumbs up. Okay, yeah, okay. So what I thought we might do, let's see. Yeah, thank you. Just kind of catching up a little on the chats here. Yeah, guests in the guest house. What a beautiful, poem. If folks haven't heard that yet, treat every, I don't know, feeling as a visitor, right? Like, yeah, great. You're dying emotionally. Okay. Just sending you care, Sheila, right? Sending you care. Integrating from different theories. Okay. Yeah. It's always, you know, it's interesting. I guess one of the advantages, and this is just what resonates inside me, of coming through to the other side of some of this journey. You know, because I guess I sense myself as somebody who's come. I mean, there's probably parts of me that are like still fractured off, but there's some of the notion of stronger at the broken places, or, you know, the gift of it all is that when another human being hurts, my heart opens, like it just like boom, you know. And I at least my belief about some of the gift of being fractured is like I understand some of what it might be like to die inside emotionally, right? And because of that, there's maybe a little bit more of a reservoir of care that allows me to hold space, or to want to hold space for those kinds of fractured parts, right? And welcome them back home. Okay, so that's one small piece and gift. Okay, so let's actually answer that question about how can a therapist help an individual find the parts, right? And there's kind of fascinating and in-depth technology. One of the biggest pieces is do your own work. And I hopefully that didn't sound, I don't know, that sounded, I don't know. I mean, let me, what I mean by that is, I can take people where I've gone, right? When I teach my students in grad school, they ask me, how do I become a good therapist? And what I've said is, well, it's actually, and this is actually what I believe, it's like suffer greatly, suffer greatly, survive, and learn to love again, right? Suffer greatly, survive, learn to love again. You know, and what that, because there's parts of me that have gotten fractured off, right? But that have come back to whole, right? Yeah, kind of fractured off and have come back to whole. They've learned to find each other, to love each other again, to feel themselves welcome again. And the gift is that they now have a particular sensitivity, right, to other fractured parts that are present in the world. And that helps me kind of attune to maybe or see kind of fractured parts. That's the, I don't know, maybe the more spiritual-ish or long-term answer to one of those questions. More pragmatically, let's do maybe a little exercise, right? That's about reclaiming some of these parts. And I actually tuned in a little bit for Alberto's talk before me. There was the shamanic tradition, right? I don't, how many people saw that talk? I'm just curious. So some people, yeah, a number. So you can see in the shamanic tradition, there's the journey to the upper world, the journey to the lower world, right? And there's the calling in of, like, he even talked about dismemberment and remembering, right? That's the fracturing into parts and the recalling. That's like dismemberment is an actual, in shamanic traditions, like, okay, that's a process. You fracture away, you let yourself fall away, and then call yourself back together again, right? That's that drum beat, like, okay, where's your power animal? That's a part that maybe you have lost, right? That you want to call back into yourself, right? Through the visit to the lower world, or spirit guide, right? To the upper world, right? That's a whole other model, right? The shamanic tradition kind of is very, much, okay, in our biophysiology, we talk about, okay, sensation, affect, meaning. It could be, I became separated from my natural wisdom, right? My true nature, right? Or I became separated from my inner guidance, right? There's so many different parts. I mean, if you even look at the whole field of psychotherapy, right? Okay, psychoanalysis is about, okay, I got separated from my past. Like, I cannot think, and it's about integrating past. Expressive arts therapies, I got separated from my capacity to express my voice, and it's about reclaiming that part of me, right? Or kind of somatic psychotherapy, I got separated from my body, right? Transpersonal psychology, I got separated from like my connection with spirit or psyche, right? That's different fractionations. So all of these different models of psychotherapy are trying to fix different kinds of fractionation, right? They're all trying to connect certain things again. CBT, like my key got stuck on negative thinking, right? It got, like, that's the note that I keep playing. I'm trying to connect that up again, right? So it's all kind of the same, or it's all themes of the same. Okay, so so pragmatically, there's, so what do we do? What do we do? Yeah. So maybe in the time left, we'll give you like an experience, right, of reclaiming a part or refinding a part. Let's see if I can do this. All right. Going to, and I hope this isn't too distracting. This is, it'll be a meditation, and I'll tell you what it is, and you get to choose. You're at choice about whether you want to participate. Okay, it'll be a revisitation, and this is one classic attempt to reclaim a lost part, but it'll be a little bit of a meditation on an inner child experience, right? So, gauge yourself. If you feel like participating, please do. If not, please, just, you can have it in the recording or, watch it later, or just consider that. Okay. So for those of you who want to participate, just inviting you to allow yourself to maybe take a few deep breaths. If you want, your eyes can be open if you prefer, or your eyes can be closed, whatever feels good for you. We'll put on a little background music, and you can allow yourself just to, I'll do it myself too, just start to feel your own body and breath and being. Maybe shifting gears a bit. And if you can, just feel the ground underneath you supporting you, or the chair, if you're sitting on a chair. And just feeling a little bit more relaxation. Feeling your breath as it enters, and just letting yourself feel nourished by that. The gentle in and out of your breath. And then, as you're here in this hopefully relatively relaxed, safe place, safe in your body, safe where you are, safe with me, safe with us, just in this space. See if you can allow yourself to just imagine walking maybe on a path that feels comfortable to you, a safe, nourishing, good path. And you're enjoying it. Imagine perhaps it's a nice enough day. Maybe feel the wind or the sound of birds, or it's your own good feeling. Just take that all in, drinking it in. And as you walk down this path, just notice a little further down the way, there's a child. There's a child off in the distance, and as you approach, you see and learn that this child is lost. This child is lost, and what do you say? What do you do? How do you feel towards this child? But just notice what naturally happens inside you with this child, this dear child. How do you comfort this child? How do you be with them? Just let yourself do that. Any words you might say, any actions you might take. And just holding that feeling of maybe care, concern, love with you. And then just letting yourself imagine anew this same walk walking along. And off in the distance, you see a child, right? And maybe their head is down, and you sense there's something amiss also again too. And as you approach, you reach down to the child, and as the child lifts their head towards you, you realize that this child is you. This child is you. This child is lost, perhaps too. And just notice what arises inside you, what feelings, what you say, what might you do? How can you be with this part, maybe this part of you that has felt lost, that has felt alone, that has wanted to remember safety, love, belonging, care, home? Can you welcome this part back in? Let this part know that they're wanted, they're cared about, they're loved. And if there are words, you can just tell them or show them or share. And just saying thank you to this part of you that maybe doesn't get enough attention, that you're here now with this part, loving this part now, caring about this part of you now. And that you can walk this road together, right? That you can get through this together. Do whatever you need to do to let this part know that they matter. They matter. And that you can spend time together, revisiting, connecting again, coming back together whenever you want, whenever they want. Letting this part know that, and just saying thank you to this part, and that if they want, you'll be back, and promising that you will, that you're not forgetting them, that you will be back. And then just slowly in your own time, just letting yourself gather your way, slowly, keeping that tender space wherever you want to be. Maybe you want to be in silence. Maybe you want to just come back while still staying inward. That's okay. Just letting yourself slowly land from that experience as we return to our space, your space, the space that you're in, acknowledging that you've been on a journey and that it deserves sacred respect and honor. And slowly in your own time, allowing yourself to just come back if you can. Come back to us. We've done this together. We've journeyed together. You are not alone, wherever you are. Yeah, just slowly letting yourself be wherever you are, and if you can, just be gentle with you. Slowly landing the ship we've been on and giving yourself, maybe some taps, maybe some care, whatever you need for your own self-care. Just appreciating all of you for your courage and your bravery and your heart and your spirit and your soul, and your willingness to go on that journey with me, right? Acknowledging fears and sometimes healing, kind of maybe similarity and connectedness. So, the journey goes on, right? Like this is a beginning, right? Feel free to reach out to me, and kind of just remind me or send me a message if you want, like who you are. I'm happy to kind of connected. So lovely to feel this sacred, special time with all of you. And blessings, blessings, yes, blessings, blessings to you all. We're in it together, and we're not a fragmented part either, right? We are a together, at least for this moment, kind of larger being. So thank you for being part of that. Many blessings to you. I'll hand it back to you, Stace. Thank you.
I'm just going to wipe the tears from my eyes. That was so beautiful. And thank you so much, Dr. Wong, for that journey. For everyone coming back softly and gently. That was a really beautiful experience, and thank you so much for your time today. And I acknowledge everyone who we had a couple of people who had their hands up there, and unfortunately we don't have the time to get to that, but as Dr. Wong said, we can pop those questions into, we do have a Facebook group for those that are seeking community and seeking support. We can pop the link to that in the chat. It's a way for us all to come together and, be that safety and to help guide one another along, share our experiences. And thanks everyone for Zooming in. It is so amazing to see your faces. And I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, Dr. Wong. Have an amazing day.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Such an honor to be with you all. Yeah.